nicked my girlfriend's bike to go to band practice, crashed it, and then ended up in hospital. So that was an interesting one. She cared more about the bike than me, clearly, at that moment, and rightfully so.
The first trip that my friends and I made abroad in 1967, when we rode to Italy as an adventure, and when we got to our destination, we were escorted by the police on Moto Guzzi Falcones, which we'd never seen anything quite like before. And it was just, oh, I'm going to have one of those one day. And now I've got a shed full of them.
I've been brought up with bikes of all shapes, sizes, normally Ducatis. I've been told I rode a motorbike before the stabiliser came off my push bike. Can't remember it, but it's what I've been told, and the photo evidence is there.
When I was 5, we were at the Dorchester show, and my dad said, "Oh, look at those little bikes down there, go and have a go, try one out." And it was a little automatic kiddie's bike, and I got on it, opened the throttle and was gone. Apparently I would disappeared for about half an hour around the showground having a whale of a time on this bike. So they knew then that I was going to obviously be a bit of a demon later on.
Culture Motorcycles is a motorcycle coffee bar, and we have a fabrication and engineering workshop doing one-off engineering for motorcycles, from early 50s Indians through to modern Ducati race bikes. I think I come from a slightly different angle to everyone else. Well, people who just ride. As a builder and designer, you end up looking at it from an entirely different angle and appreciating entirely different things because of it. The culture is purely about the motorcycles for most people. To me, it's about a lot more. It's about the art around the motorcycles also, and the environment, the social aspect of it. That's more what we're trying to achieve, and what I think it's about anyway. It's more than just the machine itself.
I've been a motorcyclist for just under 50 years, and it's been in very few gaps in that time. One of my special bikes is a Moto Guzzi Dondolino, which is a factory race bike that they made 57 models of it from 1946 to 1951. It was originally called the Gentleman's Racer, where the factory made a number of their own factory race machines, but they also did make some available for private individuals. As I've noticed over the years, when a motorcycle sees a motorcyclist coming the other way, they tend to acknowledge them. That didn't happen when I started. It was, it was just a different kind of regime. There's a certain level of affection, should we say, between motorcyclists. A lot of camaraderie. And they do appreciate each other, regardless of what they ride.
Motorcycle culture, it's an all-encompassing thing, really. You can be interested in just one little bit or lots of things. My eldest son is very interested in racing. If he's not actually riding his bike or working, you can find him sat in front of the telly watching whatever racing is going on. I gave him a track day for his birthday a couple of years ago, and ever since he rode round Silverstone, he's wanted to race.
My mum and my stepdad both ride and been brought up with countless bikes. It wasn't really till I started riding myself on my own that I really got into the bikes.
He's got all full leathers, proper helmet, proper boots. It's much safer on the racetrack than it is on the road. Much, much, much safer.
I've been brought up with a very sensible head, so I can't just go out and be a complete lunatic. My head's always very calculated.
He doesn't believe that because he's got all the gear on that makes him invulnerable, which is a big problem in the motorcycling world at the moment.
I guess being constantly close to dying and putting yourself in that situation just feels quite good. Yeah, I really get off on that.
Most people have an edge. They know where their limits are, where they feel comfortable to push to, or they're just that little bit past it.
Humans will be humans. They will be mental, much like I have been. It's fine. Some come out of it alive, some don't. It's just the way it is with anything in life, really.
You could be the best rider in the world, but if you're not watching what the car in front of you or that car that's all of a sudden appeared in that driveway is doing, then you haven't got a lot of hope. So those of us that are still riding understand that. It's, and you only learn that from experience. You don't learn that on your 3 days of direct access.
I passed my test in just after my 18th birthday. So I'd been involved in an accident. I got knocked off my bike probably 25, 30 years ago, probably. Can't remember now. I was going to work one morning, slightly damp, and I was travelling down the road towards some traffic lights. There was a big queue of traffic which I was overtaking. And the young lady just got fed up with waiting and decided to pull across the road. And the next thing I remember, I'm sliding down the road backwards with my helmet banging on the road. I didn't get back on a bike again for about 2 years. I just didn't feel like I wanted to be on a motorbike. But I was lucky enough to get back into motorcycling in my 30s again. For my sins, I'm a pensioner now, giving up work, but I'm still able to enjoy my motorcycling. I've been a lifelong fan of motorcycles, racing cars, rally cars, anything like that. I think all car drivers should learn to ride motorbikes, and then they would be more aware of motorcyclists. I think any legislation that helps young riders get on and training, you can't get too much of it.
Yeah, motorcycle regulations have changed for the way you acquire a license. And they are so much more complex and so much more expensive than when I learned to ride or when I passed my test.
For youngsters now, it's incredibly difficult with the new laws. They have to jump through enormous hoops for enormous expense that most of them don't have.
With bikes, you have to jump through hoop after hoop after hoop. I had to jump through hoops, but my parents, they could get almost straight away. But for cars, it's completely different. If they're doing it to bikes, why not cars?
We often have customers which have a concept in mind or a particular look or feel about a motorcycle, and we interpret that into a functional or aesthetically pleasing design and move forward from there. My background was all aerospace engineering, so that was pure function, and so I came from that firstly and then applied the aesthetic values to it. Whereas I think most people start with the aesthetic values and try and make that work, and that's not always the best way around, in my opinion.
Funny enough, I've always tended to leave my motorcycles in pretty much the original form they came out of the factory, and that's from all the ones I've ever had. Really beautiful bits of engineering. It's a bit of the old adage again. It's I wouldn't say it's form over function, but they are works of art as well as being motorcycles. The modern bikes are a lot easier to ride than the vintage bikes. The vintage bikes typically less brakes, certainly less acceleration. You don't like going on motorways with them.
Really, a modern bike is better because they've got the highest technology, the latest brakes, tyres, suspension. They're very light, their power to weight is silly figures compared to the older stuff. However, I find the older stuff has more of a soul. So it's just how I've been brought up. It's nicer. Yes, you can go quicker on the new stuff, but the old stuff has more meaning.
Classic motorcycles are harder work, but you could say the same for the kind of area of motorcycles we're reaching into now, where they're all electronic based. You know, people can't fix them on the side of the road like they used to. You know, you got an old motorcycle and the engine, and they'll cast all the heads, so you've got all the imperfections. So you've got the kind of human aspects being put right into the whole build of the motorcycle. Whereas today they're all machined perfectly to, you know, minute tolerances. Classic bikes had soul.
I've been riding on the back since I was about 6 years old, and then riding legally on the road from when I was 16. I've got 1 or 2, maybe 4 bikes. Basically, this is the bike I'm going to be using for the Donington Classic Festival and my first race, essentially. The bike is a 1982 Ducati TT2. Basically, it's exactly how it was 30 years ago. So I definitely get more of a buzz and a smile when I'm out riding the Ducatis. See, bikes now and then have a bit of a bad image, a bit higher crash stats than in a car, but I've tried driving a car, but it's not me. I prefer being on 2 wheels, the wind, the flexibility of being able to move in and out of traffic. I don't particularly like high top speed. That's not my thing at all. I prefer the acceleration, the sort of feeling you get from maybe overtaking a car.
It's a feeling of silence. That's one beautiful thing about it. Is there's no other factors involved, and it's just you and the motorcycle. I guess it's one of the few times in this human world where you have total control over yourself and your immediate surroundings.
The aim of the journey is the journey, as opposed to getting to the destination. It's the ride in there is the pleasurable part. Yeah, that's really about it. It's very much the social and individualistic perspective on the world.
I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie still, because I'm still relatively middle-aged. And so I like to get my adrenaline up because it makes me concentrate more. So without implicating myself, yes, I'm a bit of a speed freak. I have issues with my right hand.
I've been in the motor trade for over 40 years. I worked for a small family garage in a place called Petswood in Kent, and it was very enjoyable, but towards the end of it I didn't enjoy the so-called computer age of the motor trade. In 1971, riding in the Manx Grand Prix, in those days you rode 6 laps, which is something like 236 miles. So I think that was one of my more memorable moments, managing to get across the checkered flag and winning a replica for finishing in 15th place in the Manx Grand Prix. It's just another little thing to tick off in life's list of experiences, shall we say. I was a believer in trying to do as much as you can while you can, and so I shall carry on riding, right through till I can't anymore. I've worked for Sammy Miller since 2003, so that's 11 years. I've known of Sammy before because obviously having been involved in, or being involved in motorcycles for getting on for 50 years, or over 50 years should we say. He's obviously a very successful road racer, trials rider, development engineer and now museum owner. And yeah, he is quite inspirational to an awful lot of bikers.
Is going hot, babe. I really need to be alone. So please take your shoes in silence and leave me alone. I don't need a woman, honey. You tell me how to live. I don't need a captain. I know my room is not very clean. Baby, you really have to go. The rest of your clothes are just below. Don't make noise by opening the door. I'm gonna wake up, I don't want to see you no more, baby. I love you all night long. But now the sun is going up, I really need to be alone.
Well, the Donington race I'm about to partake in is not really different than any other club level racing. It's part of the CRMC, which is the Classic Motorcycle Racing Club. So we went last year really just to watch the racing and display all the bikes and chat to the other people, other owners. So now we're going this year, but instead of just meeting, we're actually going to take part in the classic racing.
I think my husband actually is his biggest influence. He's been his stepfather since he was 15 months old. So he's sort of grown up around all the bikes at home. And when Sam was a toddler, my husband started to club race. So he sort of had his eyes on that green racer for a very long time.
I'm feeling a bit nervous this time around. There's a bit more, not really pressure, but I'm going there to sort of start my dream really, so yeah, a little bit more nerves this year round. Hoping to finish all 4 races, that's the realistic aim. So yeah, the big goal is to have a good weekend and hopefully some good battles on track and come back in one piece. the feeling on a racetrack compared to the road is you've got a bit more freedom. You can push harder, you can go faster. It's just a more feeling, and it's sort of more of a dream. After Donington, obviously I had succeeded in what I wanted to do and starting out racing, I felt a bit relieved. In the race, experience and nerves got the better of me. But as my mum sort of has been joking around a bit, we did bring it home, but we didn't come last. So I suppose I probably would have got in a lot more trouble if I'd crashed it and broke the bike in 500,000 pieces in hospital.
He finished. He didn't come last. You know, he had 3 starts and 3 finishes, and that's what he wanted. And I think it's just he's going to want to do a bit more.
Welcome to our 39th International V-Twin Rally here in Fordingbridge in the New Forest in England. It's to celebrate the configuration of the V-Twin engine. And the Moto Guzzi is famous because the Moto Guzzi sits that way, and a Harley Davidson sits that way, and a Ducati sits that way. But that's a V, it's the V-Twin engine. I had a motorcycle licence for a long time before I had a car licence, and so yeah, I've been riding since I was 16, which is about 100 years ago. When you're riding, I'm concentrating so hard on what I'm doing and looking that you forget all the rubbish stuff that's going on in the back of your mind or what's happening in your life. I remember when I first started riding a bike, there was hardly any women rode bikes at all then. The manufacturers are starting to build bikes that women can ride because you need something that's perhaps a little bit lower to the ground with a lower centre of gravity on it so that it's easier to move on and off the stand, easier to manoeuvre. But yeah, generally I think the manufacturers have twigged on that there is a whole new market out there, and it's women.
Women riders, it's interesting because when I started riding, you would pretty much never see a woman riding a motorcycle. There was a more traditional outlook on what women's role was in life, and I think we spent a long time into the politics of feminism and the rest of it, if we wanted to go back to that. But just women are much more free to choose their lifestyle these days than they were when I was young.
I used to ride around on a 125, and when I got married, I went and did my test, and I've been riding every day since, really, so over 20 years ago now.
My most recent acquisition, 1973 Triumph Bonneville, original 1970s chopper. A chap had started building it in the late 70s, and he died at a motorcycle rally, not on the motorcycle, but he stepped out into traffic, and his mother couldn't bear to get rid of his bike. She just wrapped it up and hid it for 33 years. And she's only just come to the point where she can deal with letting it move on. And so she kind of started healing herself in that way, and I got the motorcycle of my dreams. It's that kind of motorcycle for me. It's really important, and that's why it's my perfect motorcycle.
The perfect ride. I guess a lot of the perfect rides I've had really these days are in northern Spain. The roads are very good quality. The traffic is not very dense. You're not finding speed cameras in every village, and so you can concentrate more on the road you're riding and on others rather than looking for little yellow boxes on the side of the road.
Perfect ride. For me, lots of corners. There's always a big benefit of no cars in the way. You just get a sense of freedom. You play a little bit pretending you're like some of your heroes through a couple of corners and go, oh yeah, I was Valentino Rossi or Mike Hailwood or whatever.
To be quite honest with you, any ride's a perfect ride for me. I don't mind if it's raining. I don't mind if it's sunny. You know, I don't mind if there's a little bit of traffic. There's more to play with. I just like riding my bike, you know, every day. Although you can't be 7 o'clock in the morning on a twisty A road on a Ducati TT2.
My favourite riding road is you come out of the estate and you turn left. It's a beautiful road. That's my favourite riding road because of the road surface is great, the bends are awesome, your vision is good, you've got countryside either side, and I feel really at home there because my family is from there. That is truly home. And also when I was 19, a good friend of mine died on that road on his bike, so it was just... So it just reminds me of him. To me, the perfect ride is when you learn something about yourself. It's not about where you go or how you get there. It's that single moment when you realise, you just realise what you've learned and take action on it.
Baby, I loved you all night long, but now the sun is going hot, baby.